Good afternoon, everybody, and you're welcome to our Monday afternoon webinar for the Climate and Nature Summit. And we're delighted to welcome all of you here this afternoon. I'm here with Grania from Antashka, and Grania is going to be looking at the webinar Climate Change, Science and Action. And Grania's webinar is really a taster of the primary summer course brought to you by Green Schools and the Climate Action Ambassador Programme. And this has been rolled out, was piloted in 2019, 20-hour CPD course, Climate Change, Science and Action, and it has already been completed by 123 school teachers in Ireland. Grania is a Climate Action Officer with Antashka's Environmental Education Unit, and has 8 years experience in developing and delivering training for primary school teachers in Ireland. I'm sure she'll fill you in more on her role in Antashka and her role with schools. And also she will obviously be talking to you about the climate change, science and action. Just like to say to you that this is the first of 5 webinars that we are rolling out this week in our second week for the Climate and Nature Summit. And you can register for those on the Climate and Nature Summit website, or alternatively on the SP website, or your local education centre has all the webinars on their website. And some of them are at this time, 4 or 4:30, some of them are 7 o'clock. So we'd love to see you on either yourselves, or maybe encourage other members of staff to come on to some of these fantastic webinars that have been running last week, and those that are going to run this week. So I'm going to hand you over now to Grania, and I know you're going to enjoy this webinar. Thank you, Grania.
Thank you so much, Assumpta, and thanks for everyone here today for joining, especially on a Monday evening. Much appreciated. And yeah, just before I get started, I'd also like to thank Breda in Waterford Teachers Centre and Patrick from the Climate and Nature Summit for organising the webinars and just providing such a wealth of materials all in one place. So yeah, as Assumpta said, my name is Grania. I'm Climate Action Officer with the Environmental Education Unit of Antashka. We coordinate the National Climate Change Action and Awareness Programme, and that is sponsored by the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications. Throughout today, if you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A box rather than the chat. Just makes it a little bit easier for me to go through them and answer them. And I'll try and stop every 10 minutes or so just to have a look and see what questions are there. So we don't need to wait until the end. So what I'm going to do is super quick outline. We'll talk about the online summer course. I'm going to give you a taster for module 1 today. So that's all about like a basic introduction to climate change. Then I'll go through some of the resources that we've developed as part of the Climate Action Programme in the last 4 years. And we'll have a quick look at Climate Action Week, which was a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully some of the people here today also participated in that. If you did, thank you. So yeah, this course was developed basically to empower primary school teachers to confidently explore climate change as part of the curriculum and encourage climate action in the wider school community. And as Assumpta said, 123 primary school teachers have completed it so far. So hopefully you might be next. Next year, 2022, have your course sorted already. That would be some serious forward planning. So when asked what do they want to get out of the course, which is the first thing that we ask teachers when they register, this would be one of the most common responses. I would like to feel confident in my knowledge of the topic and be able to present informative and enjoyable lessons to pupils in my school and help the school community overall to become better global citizens. So as you can probably tell, I love delivering this course because the teachers that we get to attend it generally are, I don't know, I think like the cream of the crop, you know, they're all really enthusiastic about climate change. They mightn't know everything they want to know about climate science, but they have the desire to learn. But we also need every teacher to be doing it and not just, you know, 1 or 2 or the Green Schools coordinator, that kind of thing. So hopefully we can reach the wider network through word of mouth and that kind of thing. So the course is broken into 5 modules and 35 subpages. They include loads of different active learning elements. There are lectures, notes, and videos, which I'll give you a sample of today, but there's also GIFs, storybooks, poetry, imagery, climate data, quizzes, Kahoot, I know everyone loves that, discussion pieces, learning logs, and then the final assignment is all about creating your own lesson plan on climate action. So the idea is that everything you do in the course will be usable in school. So the first module, Intro to Climate Change, we'll have a look at today. After that, then we go more in depth into climate science. That's module 2. 3 is all about solutions and communications. It's always a firm favorite of most participants. 4 is all about SSE, the dreaded school self-evaluation, and how we can use the Green Schools program to help you accomplish that. And 2 birds, 1 stone. And then the last is, of course, climate action. In terms of the learning outcomes, then basically there's 8 that we focus on. By the end of the course, participants will be able to differentiate between weather and climate. It sounds simple, but everyone needs that starting point. Understand global warming and climate change, articulate the causes and effects, and discuss concrete examples of solutions that are practical to the school community, evaluate communications in relation to climate change. This is a big one, like knowing where your sources are and how reliable they are. Where do you get your information, and can you evaluate fake news, that kind of thing. Utilising the Green Schools program, as I said, to self-evaluate your school, and then strengthening the focus of STEM and ESD, Education for Sustainable Development, in your school through Green Schools. And then lastly, creating your climate action lesson plans. So they're the 8 learning outcomes. But let's dive right in. Hopefully you have maybe a phone or something there. Just go to menti.com and enter the code 69637902. I will also post the link in the chat now, so you can use that if you would prefer. All right, so what I'll do is see if we have any words coming in so far. Don't leave me hanging now. Greta, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Anxiety, climate anxiety is a huge one at the minute in unfortunately primary and secondary students and adults as well. We do actually have a resource on climate anxiety, so I'll pop that in the link at the end. What do we have? Future generations, urgent, Polar bears, this one always comes up, but is coming up less and less now as the years go by. 5 years ago when I started this climate action role, polar bears was like the #1, melting ice caps, polar bears, far away things. And now what we're seeing is the trend is becoming a lot more local or regional or even national. So people are thinking about climate change much more in relation to their locality. And it's not necessarily just this far away concept that's quite difficult to visualize. So that is great. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on. What I'm going to do now is show you our module 1 video. I think it's about 8 minutes long. It's one of our shortest ones. I always try and not go over kind of 10 to 12 minutes for the summer course. Because I don't know about you, but I lose my attention span isn't that great. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's really basic introduction. It's basically the top 3 questions that we've gathered over the previous 3 years in the climate action program, and that just keep coming up again and again from both primary school students and teachers. So I hope you enjoy that.
The video will introduce you to climate change and explore 3 of the most frequently asked questions that we have gathered over the years. Hopefully by this stage, you have familiarised yourself with the course outline, introduced yourself to the group, and completed the short baseline survey. We also used Mentimeter to gauge your initial impressions of climate change, and here you can see some of the most common results. These words are some of the first that pop to mind when you hear climate change. Take a moment now and think to yourself. Maybe jot down a few notes. Is climate change affecting you right now? How might climate change affect your school community? And do you think Ireland is being impacted by climate change? Climate change in Ireland will result in warmer summers, wetter winters, and more extreme weather events such as storms and hurricanes. That will mean more flooding in the north and west, more drought in the south and east, and water quality issues, especially around Dublin. It could also mean the possible extinction of vulnerable species and alterations in the types and distribution of others, including migration and hibernation patterns. And last but certainly not least, farmers, fisheries, and the local economy, tourism could all be impacted by climate change in a very negative way. So let's think for a moment, where in the world is contributing most to climate change? This is a world mapper of countries by fuel use. As you can see, it definitely favours the global north or developed countries. These areas are vastly responsible for the increased amount of carbon dioxide, burning fossil fuels. These are all primary causes of man-made climate change. Now let's think, where in the world is feeling the worst effects of climate change? This paints quite a different picture of countries affected by disaster. Climate change is resulting in an increased number of extreme weather events, and it's largely affecting the global south or developing countries where the economy and infrastructure is hit hardest by disaster. Let's look at them both together. Take a moment to compare those images. Who do you think is at risk of climate change now? Well, pretty much everybody is at risk. Since 2008, over 20 million people have been forcibly displaced every year by weather-related disasters, such as floods, storms, wildfires, droughts, extreme weather temperatures. As Obama said in 2015, climate change is happening now. These are climate refugees. We all need to stop putting off climate action and solely talking about future generations. It's important that we talk about climate change as it is happening now in the present, here. Okay, so let's go through 3 of the most frequently asked questions. The first one is fairly basic, but it's really important. What is the difference between weather and climate? Quite simply, weather is what Evelyn Cusack presents. We're talking minutes to days to weeks. Climate, on the other hand, is the average pattern over 30 years or more. That could be up to hundreds of centuries. But when we talk about climate data, we're talking 30 years or more. Climate scientists are often asked how they can accurately predict climate 30 years from now when tomorrow's weather forecast is wrong. Well, a simple way of understanding this is by looking at a comparison. We know the average life expectancy for people in Ireland is 81 years. And we can use models to map what that life expectancy will be 30 years from now. But we can't predict the exact date or even year that each individual person will die. So, when we look at a comparison between weather and climate, weather is constantly changing, whereas climate is much more gradual and easier to predict. On to the second question, are global warming and climate change the same? The short answer is no. Global warming refers to the increasing average surface temperature of Earth, and we'll cover this more in Module 2. Whereas climate change encompasses global warming, but also the changing rates of precipitation, evaporation, and extreme weather events such as flooding, drought, and storms. You might remember the destruction and devastation and 3 deaths that Storm Ophelia brought to Ireland in October 2017. Shortly after that, Storm Eleanor rang in the new year with widespread flooding. 2 months later, in March, we had the Beast from the East. And then that same summer, we had a 6-week heat wave and water shortage, which resulted in lots of forest fires, gorse fires, Here you can see a powerful image of a helicopter dumping water in Mayo. Moving outside of Ireland, this farmer's name is Ahmed. He's a Syrian farmer who had 400 acres of wheat, but now it has all turned to desert. 60% of Syria's fertile land turned to desert after a 4-year drought. This killed off 80% of the nation's cattle herd, and it resulted in 1.5 million people fleeing to already overcrowded cities, greatly contributing to social unrest. Here we can see children resting on the back of a truck after the 2014 Healing Walk in the Alberta Tar Sands, Canada. This annual event is run by Indigenous people to draw attention to the destruction that this industry is causing. There's an estimated 6.5 million deaths every year that are attributed to air pollution. And last but certainly not least, up to 50% of species worldwide could be lost this century due in part to climate change. So you see, it's not that the phrase global warming or climate change is wrong or right, it's just that climate change paints the bigger picture. It more accurately describes what's happening now. The third question, is there a hole in the ozone layer and does it cause global warming or climate change? So the thinning in parts of the ozone layer is caused by a group of man-made chemicals, the most well-known being CFCs or chlorofluorocarbons. These were banned back in 1987 when world leaders first agreed to the Montreal Protocol. CFCs can be found in things like refrigerants, solvents, foams, aerosol sprays, and well, the ozone layer has a really important job of protecting us from too much UV radiation from the sun. The thinning in parts of the ozone layer does not cause global warming or climate change. However, global warming could slow down the natural repairing process of the ozone layer. So kind of the opposite of what everyone thinks. While global warming heats the atmospheric layer closest to Earth, it causes the ozone layer to cool and thereby worsening ozone loss. That brings us to the end of this video lecture. Thanks for listening, and please do comment below with any questions you may have.
Awesome. Hopefully you can see me and hear me again. I'll just take off that video optimization. Great. I see there is a question there, so I'll go to that first. Can we get the slides? Yes, absolutely. Every single resource that Green Schools makes is freely available on greenschoolsireland.org. And prior to this webinar, I sent Breda in the teacher education unit all of my PDFs, my notes, a sample of module 1. So yeah, it's all there, and we will probably also have the recording on the Green Schools YouTube if it's not on the Education Centre's YouTube as well. Or maybe also it'll be on the Climate and Nature Summit website. So I said I'd just show you the notes as well. So I don't expect you to be able to read this. It's just to give you an idea what goes with each module. So you'll have like a 10-minute video and then 4 or 5 pages of notes with some links where the information has been gathered, or if you want to explore something a bit further, like at the end there, a lot of teachers are really interested in the ozone layer and learning more about like CFCs and HFCs. So we have a couple of links in there as well. Then after the 5 modules, every teacher will just get a 1-pager for each module that summarizes the in-classroom videos. So you'll see here the 4 we recommend for module 1 are from NASA, Wind Energy Ireland, SEAI, and a Raptor video. And then at the end, you also have an optional reading list. So we usually ask that you do 1 piece of reading, but I suppose generally people do a lot more if they're interested in it. So you can see there are some resources that we've recommended from Trócaire and Oxfam, but also something that if you're interested in global citizenship and education, This report from the Zimbabwe Human Development Report 2017, but it's still very accurate in terms of the picture of climate education in the developing South. So yeah, very good report. And then the Plain English Guide to Common Environmental Terms, to be honest, I still flick back to it every now and then if I'm looking for an easy explanation for something. And so great to have for primary students as well. So you'll get that PDF and all those links as well. In terms of how we measure, I'm not going to read that quote out, you can read it yourself if you want, but it's really important for me that we're measuring our results and improving the course year on year. The content does remain generally the same. So if you've done the course last year, you probably don't want to do it again next year. But I do change probably about 15 to 25% of the content based on feedback and new resources that we've developed. So yeah, each participant completes a baseline survey before they can access any of the course materials, and then they complete a final survey at the end of the course. Surveys only take 3 or 4 minutes to complete, but they allow us to have this picture of how we're doing basically. So yeah, the following results demonstrate a really big increase in knowledge relating to climate change, and more importantly, confidence in speaking about climate science, and then motivation to take climate action, which is just a nice bonus as a result of the course. So let's take a closer look at knowledge. Now, before I do that, I'm just going to check. Oh yeah, I answered that question. Cool. If there's any other questions, please do pop them in the Q&A box. But yeah, so knowledge on climate change. I'm really happy to say that it increased by an average of 42% across the board. That's based on 49 or 50 teachers that completed the course in 2021. So yeah, the baseline score before is in red, and then the knowledge increase is in orange. You're probably wondering what 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 refer to. So number 1 is the difference between weather and climate. Number 2 is understanding global warming and climate change. 3 is the causes and effects. 4 is the solutions. And then 5, which is the lowest baseline of all, is the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, they were introduced in 2015, and still in 2021, there's a huge lack of awareness around them. Not in every primary school. I know there are absolutely amazing schools out there that are doing huge amounts of work on the global goals. But overall, even outside of schools, the knowledge of SDGs or global goals is very low. So let's have a look at some of these markers. So number 3, knowledge of the causes and effects of climate change rose by 37%. Number 2, participants' understanding of global warming and climate change rose by 40%. Knowing how to explain the difference between weather and climate, which is honestly the most important starting point, rose by 35%. Knowledge of solutions for climate change rose by 43%, and familiarity with the SDGs rose by an amazing 57%, but that was quite low to start with. So yeah, delighted with those results. And you can see a quote there for yourself. Then in terms of action, this wasn't something we were going to originally measure outside of school, like personal action. But after the first year of the course, it was really, really apparent how much of a focus that was for some teachers. You know, they didn't just want to teach climate change in a school setting. They wanted to have information that might change their personal life as well. So that was amazing, a really nice surprise element, I guess, to developing the course. And similar to knowledge, we laid out 5 statements and asked for their level of agreement. And here you can see, I think the average increase, is 28% on action on climate change. So number 1 refers to climate change is a visible, local, and current issue. So that's an incredible baseline to start with, 81%. Number 2, I'm confident in my ability to talk about climate science, much lower. Number 3, I will explore climate science as part of the subjects I teach. Great commitment there to start with even. Number 4, I feel empowered to take climate action in my personal life. Also great. And then last, but definitely not least, I will encourage climate action in my school community. So even though number 2, the confidence in someone's ability to talk about climate science was at a really low marker, 37%, they were still really determined to encourage climate action in school. So that was honestly like just, it was really motivating for me to see what teachers are doing and their willingness. And I think you're all amazing. So let's have a look at some other feedback. I like to pride myself on measuring everything and listening to feedback and providing what you ask for. And after the first year of the summer course, we realized there was a big lack of material when it came to introducing climate change to younger children. And it's also been like recommended by experts in the field that it's really important to develop educational resources and programs for climate change for even early years education. So that recommendation is from Alia and it came out in early 2020. It's also really widely recommended that climate change education at the junior primary stage should really focus on that empowering collective action and solutions-oriented approaches in the local community. So kind of connecting the dots between the school and the local community. And then when they're that bit older, so maybe 3rd class and above, shifting then to a global justice focus for senior primary as a taster, but more then into secondary school and even 3rd level. So keep that in mind when we look at Climate Action Week a bit later. Or now. Okay, so every year since 2017, we've organized Climate Action Week. It's always mid-October, and we've built up a huge amount of resources in both English and Irish over the last 5 years. COG has actually been very good in helping us translate them as well. And some of our longer resources as well, even 40-page resources have been translated as Gaeilge, and we always have our posters and pledges and everything in both English and Irish. So yeah, basically just let us know if we're missing something and we'll try and deliver it for next year or develop it. And I will pop this link in the chat now. But even though Climate Action Week 2021 is over, you can still download the resources from this year if you just want to save them. I don't know how much longer that link will be there, but it's still there at the minute. So, and then our dates for next year are kind of up in the air a little bit because the midterm is very late next year. So our Climate Action Week will either be the 10th to the 16th or the 17th to the 23rd. Which still leaves a gap week before the midterm. We're just waiting to find out when Maths Week is. And once they announce that, we'll just pick the other week. So the two aren't happening at the same time. Although I'm sure you know how busy the primary calendar is with all these weeks. Here you can see our results from last year. The 2021 report I had hoped would be ready by today, but it's not. It has to be finalized probably Wednesday or Thursday this week. But I do have a feeling just from an initial look at the numbers that it's going to be so much bigger. I think it will have been our biggest Climate Action Week ever. So thanks if you participated. All right. So we promised a junior primary storybook that would introduce climate action in an age-appropriate manner, and hopefully that's what we've achieved. Green Schools worked with an amazing Irish author and illustrator, Oisín McGann, to produce this giant storybook last year. So it was a great lockdown project, and it's called We Want Our Park Back. And you can watch the recording of Oisín reading the book and drawing some of the animals. You can see my favorite hedgehog there. And if we have time towards the end, I'll show you a clip of that as well. And I will share the link as well in the chat. Sorry, I normally have my lovely colleague Gary here who shares all the links for me, but he's actually over in COP, the lucky devil. So I'm just a little bit slower today, but should be fine. Yeah, so that's a storybook. And then I also wrote a resource book of lesson plans to go along with it. And that can be downloaded from the Green Schools website. And just bear with me, I'm going to absolutely spam the chat with links for a minute. So that link there is the junior primary storybook. It's about 25 minutes long, really nice for your class if you want to watch it. And then I will also send in the link for the resource that I wrote that goes with it. It's really not just for green schools, like the hope is that any teacher can pick this up, not just the coordinator. And yeah, hopefully you like that. Okay, so what I'll do is maybe show you a couple of minutes of Oisín's clip. It's okay, if it's okay, I'll just fast forward through some bits, just to give you a taster for that.
Hi, I'm Oisín McGann, and I'm a writer and illustrator, which means that I write stories and draw pictures for books. And this is a book I did for green schools that I'm going to read to you now. And I always like looking for the extra little things in pictures in books, you know, things that don't kind of get mentioned in the story but are interesting to look at. And I did this book with loads of little details that I thought kids would enjoy picking out. So I'm going to read it to you now and see, I'll talk about some of the stuff in the pictures, but see what else you can spot as well. Some grown-ups came to the park today and all their cars have blocked the way. They're making a mess with the way they play. Now we can't play here anymore. So there's the guy up the front, look on his phone, he's calling all his mates in, and the adults are all charged into the park, but they've left their cars blocking up the gate and the kids can't get in. Just look what they did to all the trees, for wood, for fire to make their tea. They took all they could and more than they need. Now we can't play here anymore. So look, the adults are kind of knocking down the trees. This guy with a chainsaw there up the back. And there's a woman sitting on the trees that falls down, and there's a woman up the front. And I think she thinks she's a deer or something. And the hare there beside her, he doesn't look very happy, does he? Look, they've lit a fire already. They cooked up smoke with their campfires too. Burning wood they took, and the smoke it blew in our faces too, a sick stinky stew. Now we can't play here anymore. So now they've all lit fires, and there's smoke everywhere. It's kind of, they're all coughing and choking on it, holding their nose. Look at the guy, look at that guy. I think his bum's on fire, but they do have a fire extinguisher, so he'll probably be all right. But still, not being very careful. Look at this rubbish. It's filled the lake, all the yucky gunk only humans make. More poisonous junk than the lake can take. Now we can't play here anymore. So the lake's absolutely stuffed with stuff. You can see a tractor tire and a shopping trolley. And look, they fished a welly out of the lake with a fishing rod. I think that belongs to the woman over there with the hat. And the fish can't breathe. They're sticking their faces up out of the water. The water's so dirty. There's loads of stuff on the bank, so they've really made a mess of that lake. And the guy at the back there, he's pushing over a portaloo. The trees, they held all the earth in place on the river banks where the river raced. The water's flooding all over the place. Now we can't play here anymore. So there's a guy in a canoe there. He's trying to back out, but the water's rushing down into the field. It's kind of draining out of the river because they've cut all the trees away, and the trees were holding all the grass and the earth in place. Even the kids are having to run off. Fox looks a bit scared, doesn't he? These grown-ups play in the playground too. They break and take and think it's cool. It looks like a big dump. It smells like a loo. Now we can't play here anymore. I'm sure you've all seen kind of broken stuff in playgrounds. I always think it's a bit annoying. So there's a fire lit again, and there's a broken swing, and that guy's on the other swing. He's flying off into the air, and one guy looks like he's going to cut the cable there, and they've made an absolute mess of the place. I don't know if grown-ups should be playing in playgrounds, really. They keep taking stuff, they keep burning stuff, they just won't stop, but enough's enough, and we want our park back. I think the kids are looking really annoyed now. What do you think? They leave in their cars, smoke spouting out, it's in our noses and in our mouths, and the air is stinky. We cough and shout that we can't play here anymore. So look at all that smoke coming out of those cars. You can barely breathe in the air, there's so much thick smoke. We can fix this yet. We still have time with work and hope, with your brains and mine. We can plant and fix and clear the air, but we can't do this on our own. So we look at the park now and it's absolutely wrecked. The fence is wrecked, there's fires lit, there's litter all over the place, trees chopped down. It's in an awful state. I don't know if the kids are going to be able to do this on their own. But we're not alone, I'm glad to say. They feel sorry now that they ran away. Now everyone's back in the park today and they won't spoil things anymore. So things are getting fixed up now. Things are looking a bit better. They're planting new trees, clearing the place up. Starting to feel a bit more hopeful. It takes time to fix all the damage done, but we're finished now. We can have some fun, all the kids and the grown-ups, everyone. Now we can play here all day long. And that's what a park's supposed to look like. Lots of green, kids playing, place looking good. So that's my story. We want our park back. I'm Ushie McGann. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for listening.
All right. So yeah, that is our junior primary talk from Climate Action Week. I'm not going to go straight into another video. What I will do is I'll just pop the link in the chat. So this is our senior primary talk that Oisín also did, but much more geared for kind of 3rd class to 6th class, even first years in secondary school, I would say. So the language is a little bit more advanced, but it's still funny. Oisín is super silly, but fantastic and great with the kids. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed those resources that we've shared. Let me just have a look. Oh yes, so we did promise that everyone that attends today will get posted a copy of the Giant Storybook for your school. So if you want that, as I obviously don't have any of your details, I'm just going to post a SurveyMonkey link where you can fill in your school postal address, and please include your air code because I've had so many resources returned to sender if the address wasn't proper, or yeah, just pop the air code in, please. But that kind of brings us to the end. So I'm going to check, are there any questions in the Q&A or the chat? Nope. I know Patrick also has a survey evaluation. So that is for if you attended the wider Climate and Nature Summit last week. So that is a Google Docs form, which I've just popped in the chat there now. So yeah, please complete that evaluation as well. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but if there's any questions from anyone, please shoot now. Otherwise, have a lovely Monday. Okay, I don't think there are any questions. Oh, great, Catherine, in terms of senior cycle, yes. Where do we put our address? Oh, great. I'll post that link again. So it's a SurveyMonkey link, and it's the first question for your postal address. So you should see that. Catherine, in terms of the senior cycle, that resource, the Climate Action resource for primary teachers, I'd have a look there if you have maybe 3rd class to 4th. If you're a 5th or 6th class, or your class is quite advanced, have a look at Oisín's talk that we did for Climate Action Week. You can just search for it on YouTube, or I can post the link again. It's called A Short Hopeful Talk About Climate Change, and it's specifically geared towards senior primary students. Or maybe your question was about senior cycle in secondary school. If it is, let me know. Post-primary, yeah, okay. So for post-primary, we have a different resource, which I'm going to talk through tomorrow, but I will give you the link. Just bear with me for 1 second, I will find it. It's a resource I wrote in 2019, maybe. And we have it in English and Irish. And this is for post-primary. Okay, that link there. Let me see, is there any other questions? Hopefully everyone has found the survey okay. Yeah, it's just the first question, pop your address in. Is it worth mentioning the primary consultation? Oh, absolutely, yes. Thank you, Patrick. We actually just finished recording a podcast and talked about this. So NCCA currently for primary school have the third phase of the consultation for the primary curriculum up now. So please, if you want to see more climate action in the curriculum, please do participate in that. I'll get the link for you now as well. At the minute, environmental education is lumped in with history, geography, and in the junior side of primary, it's only allocated up to a maximum of an hour and a half a week, rising to 2 hours for 3rd to 6th class. Which, look, I know I'm biased as I'm a climate action officer, but I just really don't think it's enough time. If it was 2 hours per week dedicated to environmental action, that'd be amazing. But even just 1 hour of proper climate literacy every week, I just think is really important. So I, on behalf of Green Schools, made a submission in the 1st and 2nd stages of the framework. Patrick has posted the link there, amazing. But yeah, I would really strongly encourage you to do the same on behalf of your school, or if you're involved in any network. Now, Laura, it'd be amazing if we could put together a template or some ideas to help people who might not be confident in putting together a submission themselves. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is something that I've thought about. I don't know if I'm the best placed person to do that. I would love to do that with some other primary teachers. So if you're interested in that, like, I don't want it to be just my voice, because I've already made a submission. I'd love for it to be like a collective piece that's put together. So yeah, Laura, if you want to email me, I'll pop my email in the chat, or if anyone else has a little bit of time, you know, it could just be a half an hour Zoom meeting, talking through what we think it should be. And I don't mind writing it then, just once it's not only my voice. Okay, so my email is gryan@eeu.toshka.org. So amazing. Okay, cool. Let's do it. So I don't think there are any other questions. Oh, Assumpta's there. Amazing.
Hi, Brian. Sorry, just after rushing in. I'm just really interested to hear about that last comment or question that came in on the chat. And I'm sure Patrick is there in the background as well. Yes, saying yes, yes, please. But yeah, we will accommodate, facilitate anything like that. So if people want to contact us here, or if they want to just, we might just maybe have a forum or a panel discussion that we can set up through the centre here. And I would definitely feel that it would be nice to have a group, you know, that would. I know you've already put in your submission. I know other bodies put in submissions, and we would love to put in a submission from SP. But obviously, to have that information fed in by teachers and practitioners on the ground, rather than just, you know, I mean, we as centre directors wouldn't have that same connection to schools and classrooms and pupils and students.
Yeah, so exactly.
We'd love to. I'm sure Patrick and myself will be talking after the Climate and Nature Summit, so we're going to be looking at all of these events again.
Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. Because as you said, like I'm not in the classroom every day. And, you know, I think if it's coming from practicing primary teachers themselves, it'll be more powerful for sure. And if there's a list of schools that have attached their name to it as well, that's
Perfect,
always
yeah.
well
I see
received.
Laura Niwele also put in a comment there, and Laura is going to be doing some work with us here in the centre too. So look,
Brilliant.
there are lots of things happening, but I think it's that concerted effort, particularly when they're looking for submissions at this stage. And I know, you know, that the whole sustainability topic is coming up. I know Norma Foley mentioned something about it when there wasn't, well, nothing in the cap has been related to education really. So she was very quick to say, you know, this will be reviewed under the sustainability topic, or I suppose area in education in the next year or so. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't actually finished it now. I think I'm on 170 something, but the climate action plan has quite a few references to education programs that aren't necessarily like they are happening in schools, but on a voluntary basis. But there needs to be more support there for people to do that. And yeah, reinstate kind
I think something consistent and something that's, you know, a national, you know, that's happening in all schools, you know, and something people that, and then the teachers feel empowered because the training is happening. Now, I think the training is going into, I heard on the panel discussion the other night, that the training is definitely going into, you know, the teacher education colleges, but just I think that it's, you know, happening nationally.
Amazing. Well, look, I think I might wrap up early if there are no further questions, and you have all of the links there. And Breda, I sent all of the materials and PowerPoints and everything. So
that's great, Grania. It's Monday afternoon, so I think it's good way to kind of finish up if there's nothing else there. Okay.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, there's just one tiny last question. Where is good for clips? Do you have a channel? Yes, we do. So Green School's YouTube channel and Climate Ambassador YouTube channel. We have all of our favorited clips that are from other organizations, and then we have everything we produced ourselves as well. Great. And I think Patrick is definitely on board for that, Assumpta, judging from the chat there. So great.
Okay. Thanks a million, Grania. Thanks for that. Thank you everybody for coming on a Monday evening. Good way to start the week. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hope to see you on some other CPD during the week, if not yourselves, but encourage other staff members to come on. Thanks for that.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye now. Bye-bye.